Well, there is a Shreveport church pretty excited about its growth. Its attendance jumped by huge numbers almost overnight. Were they pretty worried about their future before that sudden surge? Sure they were. Did they pray about it? You bet they did. But the really good stuff here wasn't just in the numbers. It was in the faces.
He calls us to share it with each other. So we love Jesus through loving each other.
The message being delivered by Pastor Michael Shannon on this particular Sunday isn't earth-shattering stuff.
But we're supposed to do back to others as Jesus has done for us.
We are all expected to just do what we know is the right thing to do, including staying until the end of church service.
If the church don't get out at a certain time, guess who's going to get the short end of the stick? Jesus.
Even if the Saints or Cowboys kick off at noon. And that also applies to picking what church to call home.
You hear this white church or this black church. Do you see it like a white church and a black church, or?
Well, you know, they say Sunday is the most segregated day of the week.
So what in God's name happened here inside Faith Lutheran Church, tucked in between the Queensboro and South Lakeshore neighborhoods?
It's kind of like, you know, rhythm and blues and country western. You know, it's just, you know, you go to where you hear what tickles your ear.
There's an energy in this church that I can't describe any more than when I was a teenager here.
Tim Bropes and Bob Mathis.
We're so proud of what's going on in this church right now.
Have been attending church here at 4175 Lakeshore Drive for years. A church founded on a 5-acre plot back in the mid-50s. A church thriving and growing so quickly. As I discovered in this 60-year-old photo, they were thrilled, trust me, thrilled despite the lack of smiles here, thrilled to pay off the building's banknote in only 7 years' time.
My family has a lot of roots in this church, my grandfather being the second pastor.
Pastor Lothar Kleinshans, one of many pastors who led what was then St. Paul Lutheran Church, to years and years of packed Sundays in the pews, fellowship gatherings, and a blossoming youth ministry. It was a church family with a bunch of different last names, but one unmistakable, and no one wants to say it out loud, thing in common: the color of their skin.
Yep. It's sad. It's not the way the Lord wants it.
But as the faces in the neighborhood around St. Paul began to change.
We tried for years to bring people to the church from the neighborhood area.
The faces in the pews started disappearing, either because those families moved to other areas of town, or when members passed on, the next generation of family members were already worshiping somewhere else.
It was like, as they say, just pounding your head against a brick wall.
The brick walls of this church, which by the year 2016 was left with less than 24 parishioners.
Hopeless is the word I would use.
It was.
It was a hopeless feeling. We didn't see an outcome that could save the church.
St. Paul the Apostle spent years after the death of Christ founding churches all across Europe. And here sat this St. Paul, faced with closing its doors. Until that one day, St. Paul even lost its pastor for one Sunday.
We had our pastor was away at some kind of a meeting or a mission or something like that, and we had nobody to preach that week.
So instead of inviting a fill-in pastor to lead their Sunday service, they decided to load up that small handful of faithfuls left in the pews and attend another Lutheran church nearby on Broadway Avenue.
I had never been to a black worship service, so I was kind of interested in seeing it.
A little church named Faith Lutheran, with growing problems of their own.
We needed classrooms, you know, facilities to do Sunday school. It was just really, we needed more.
Pastor Shannon says his worship numbers were growing, but so were years in that old sanctuary.
In Moortown, I recall when a roof was leaking, pay the pastor and check bouncing.
So there's a point in time in life where we're going to have to come to a point to where we acknowledge our sin.
But on that Sunday, when those St. Paul members were led to faith, a message was delivered far beyond the words coming from Pastor Shannon's mouth that day.
We were just knocked over with how wonderfully they treated us. They were loving. They were welcoming.
You don't act like what you say.
The message eventually received by Bob, Tim, and many of the remaining few that called St. Paul home was one of giving.
You ever heard the expression, boy, they look like they need a hug? Huh? Yeah. Well, let's go hug them.
St. Paul gave Faith Lutheran more than just hugs in the days that followed.
Look at us now. We were given this church, and the white people gave it to us, and half of them joined. And they joined and come to church.
The entire paid-off building.
What? You know, and it was kind of that.
All 5 acres.
These people right here, they gave it to us.
The congregation gave it to you. Good morning, Eddie.
They gave it to us.
And what money they had left sitting in the bank.
Is it every day that one church just gives another church their building, their property?
No, it's rare. Way beyond our wildest dream or imagination, this would have been the answer.
The answer to Faith Lutheran's growing need for space.
This is the classroom where the teenagers meet.
And the answer to St. Paul's future, discovered, all because of that one Sunday when they had no one to lead the way.
Because they showed us that they were doing God's work in the right way. And we didn't want to just be spent willy-nilly on something else.
So when the enemy surrounded the Long Range, and he said, Tonto, what are we going to do? And Tonto said, what do you mean we?
A Sunday when St. Paul was led to faith.
You're going to have Ben and Fran here, Wanda and the group sit here.
And where faith has made themselves right at home inside the old St. Paul.
You got Anthony and Deborah.
It's a home where Pastor Shannon says, only by the grace of God.
Now, everybody has their seat now, you know. Everybody has their pew.
That no one ended up sitting in someone else's favorite seat. And a home where it doesn't matter what you look like.
One of the biggest things I think we found is that we are more alike, much more alike than we are different. And that's what's exciting to me.
But a home now led by faith for everyone to attend.
And I just pray one day where people could come to our church and no matter who they were could see somebody that looked like them. And the humbling thing to me is he allowed me to be a part of that type of a blessing.
And the tough thing, since we did talk about race, and you've got a black church and a white church, they both sides admit they lost a couple of parishioners from the old St. Paul days and the Faith Lutheran days, just from just not real comfortable with this new mixture, which is a reality still faced here in 2018. And another thing he brought up too, he goes, you know, good luck finding another African-American Lutheran pastor this far south, because it's kind of more of a northern state sort of thing. So,
great story, and I'm glad that you know, I would say to the people that left that they probably need to research more into the Bible.
They're missing out.
Right.
It's like this is the second or third time I've done a story about a church, and I'm getting church all over the place now on both sides of the Red River. Hey, I also have a good stuff update for you. You remember Spencer Harrison, his love of all things UPS?
Yes.
Just an amazing guy. And one thing he said during that story we did on him a while back was, man, one day, like, I'm going to work here. Guess who hired Spencer Harrison?
UPS. Oh my
His
God.
mom posted about it on Facebook. He is officially getting paid.
Wow.
I don't know if it's payday week or what for him, but Spencer, congrats. Now, instead of having to buy it online,
right,
he can earn it. He's getting it as an employee now of UPS. Gotta love it,
Spencer.
Spencer.
Spencer, and good for UPS.
Congratulations.